Hello, sweet friends. This is Shelley from Koala Knits and Knacks. Thank you so much for joining me in this tutorial. First of all, if you are new to my channel, I want to welcome you and ask you to hit that subscribe button down below. It means a lot to me and helps me to know how many people are interested in my channel. If you're not new and you're here with me, thanks for continuing to be a part of my community. I appreciate you guys all so much. You just have no idea. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to close your tubes into so that you have a flat edge, a beautiful braided flat edge. Isn't that gorgeous? I call it a braided join, but it's also known as the slip stitch join, and we're going to use our crochet hook for that. I do mention in the tutorial when we get to do this that I would show you one side using a latch hook tool, but I completely forgot, so my apologies to you for that. We're going to use a crochet hook to close up our ends, and I give you lots of tips to show you how to do it so that they're both even. They're both nice and stretchy, and you just have a beautiful, even tension on your end, because it is important. And you can have ugly ends by not using proper technique. So there we go. We're going to do that first. Then I'm going to show you how to do the mattress stitch or the invisible join. When you're putting two tubes together, it looks the same on both sides, you see? And I'm going to show you how to do the braided join. That's the front side. It looks very different on the back side. So you're going to want to stick with me on that too, because I give you lots of tips on how to make it uniform, especially on the braided join, how you want the V's to be going the same direction on every tube that you join, and how to start in the proper stitches, etc. I'm going to show you all of that in this tutorial. So I'm glad you're here with me. Thanks for joining me. All right, friends, I think we're ready to start. I'm going to set these three pieces aside. I will bring them back out in a little bit. But we're going to start with the join at the top. When we make our tubes, whether it's on a large machine or a small machine like this, we're going to seam up the top and the bottom in a flat edge, sometimes called the slip stitch join. I always refer to it as the braided join. That's just what I call it. But essentially, it's like doing a slip stitch, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to close up the end on both sides of this tube that I have made here. Now, if you need to know how to put on the waste yarn on both ends, I posted two videos at the same time. This one and one that coincides with it on doing the drawstring cast on and off, and also doing the waste yarn on both ends. And I show you two different ways to do the drawstring cast off, and I show you two different ways to do the waste yarn cast on, and two different ways to do the waste yarn cast off on that tutorial. So please look for that. All right, and follow it through to the end, because there's lots of different tips and things that will help you throughout the beginning to the end of that video, as there will be in this one. So we're going to start with how to close the end once we have our waste yarn on. All right, now if you want to be working on the same side as I am on, because they are different, finding the first two stitches that we're going to put stitch markers into is different on both sides. So grab the end that you started your project with, and that is the one that you will find where the tails are automatically, I just will undo the knot here. The tails are automatically falling to the inside of your work. That's the beginning of your work. I'll show you the difference. These tails here are on the outside. They automatically fall to the outside. That's the end of your work. We're going to go to this side, just so that we're on the same page here. Grab yourself two stitch markers. Now, if you follow my channel, you know that my stitch marker of choice is always, or generally always, bobby pins. They're easy to take in, or put in, easy to take out, and they're cheap to buy. You can get like 100 of them for like next to nothing. So anyways, you're going to take that stitch marker. You're going to take your waste yarn tail right there. Oops, this one is already loose. Your waste yarn tail, and the last loop that it's going through, this one right here. So just follow it up. That loop that it's going through, you're going to pop a stitch marker in there. Take that tail and make sure it's outside of your work. You don't want to seam it to the inside. Then you're going to find your working yarn tail right here. Okay. And that last loop that creates right there, that loop, is the one you're going to put your stitch marker in, just like that. Take that tail and pop it out. So now we have to make sure that we work all of these green loops. I'm using a 5mm crochet hook. 4.5 works well too, or even smaller, whatever your choice is. To go a little bit bigger is a little bit more difficult, but this would be the biggest one I would use. All these little bumps here, these little loops, are the stitches. Because I used a 46 needle machine, there are 46 of those little loops going all the way around, and I have to make sure that I catch all of them when I'm closing this. Or again, when I take my waste yarn off, that row is going to start dropping because there's nothing holding that top loop. If you're using a 48 needle Sentro, or a 22 needle machine, or a 40 or a 32, whatever you have, it's the same thing. You have to make sure you catch every loop that is represented by your machine. All right, now for the 46 needle, I want to go across and find the exact ones that are on the side here. So 46 divided by 2 is 23. So I need to find 23 and 24, and I'm going to start with my hook in stitch 24. If you are using the 48 needle Sentro, of course, you're going to start with stitch 24 and 25, and you're going to put your crochet hook in stitch 25. And same goes with the 22 needle. You're going to find stitch 11 and stitch 12, and you're going to put your hook under stitch 12. Okay, so then let's go back to the 46 needle. If I'm going to go around to 23 and 24, counting the first one with the bobby pin in it with stitch marker, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. This is 23. So this is the first half. This is 24, starts the second half. You're going to put your crochet hook under stitch 24. You can use a crochet hook, or you can use a latch hook tool. I'll use the latch hook tool for the other side so you can see what I mean and how you can work that. So I've got this under stitch 24, and I'm going to now count that as stitch 1, because until you're familiar with this, you want to count every loop, making sure that you don't miss one. So I'm going to count that as stitch 1. Then I'm going to go up to this one here, put it on my hook, then grab it and bring it through that loop. Now I've got 2 worked. I'm going to go down to the bottom row here, pick up that very next loop, work it through the loop on my hook. That's 3. I'm going to go up to the top row, pick up the very next one, work it through. That's 4. And I'm going to keep rotating back and forth from bottom to top, bottom to top. So 5, 6, doesn't matter if you hook it from the top and grab it, or if you go underneath and grab it like that, whatever works for you. 7, 8, 9, 10, I like to hook it, 11, 12, 13, 14, and don't pull it tight when you get it through the stitch, just let it loosely come through. And I'm going to go all the way down, being sure to count. Now I've lost count because I'm talking to you. And so, but I know where to grab the stitches, but you're going to count, and you're going to make sure that when you get to the end, I'll show you once I get there. So I'm going from bottom to top, bottom to top, and I'm just loosely letting that go through my hook. I'm not taking it through and then pulling. I'm just putting a very even and light tension on it. And when I get to the end, you can see how they're hard to see there. This will be 43. I can tell that already, so I'm going to get in there. My tails are out. This is 44. This stitch marker right here, let me get my tails out of the way. This one closest to you will always be 45 if you're working on the 46 needle machine. This will be 46. If it's not, you've missed something somewhere and you need to go back and correct it, okay? If you're working on the 48 needle machine, this will be 47. This will be 48. Likewise, if you're on the 22 needle, this will be 21 and 22. But for me, it's 45, so I can lift up on that stitch marker, work my stitch, easily pop that out, lift up on my stitch marker, that's 46, work that stitch. Then I'm going to take my tail and I'm going to yarn over and pull it through that last loop and pull down, snugging it up with my thumb. That is how we close the end. Look how beautifully uniform that is. You keep the same tension and you'll have a beautiful uniform end. Otherwise you're going to have tight stitches and loose stitches and tight stitches and loose stitches. You don't want that. All right, let's go ahead and work the end. I'll help you find the stitches here. So your tails are coming out. If you take that last white loop that's attached to the end of your tail here and you pull it through that working yarn loop, that green loop right there, where your tail is coming through, that last loop that your tail is coming through is the one you're going to put your stitch marker in. When you look at your working yarn, you will see that here is my working yarn tail, and that stitch, that loop that's right beside it, right there, is the last one that you're going to put your second stitch marker in, right there, right beside the tail. Make sure that comes out. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to do exact same thing. Counting this one as number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24 are those two. I'm going to go under stitch 24. That now gets counted as stitch 1, working our way back, and up into 23. That's 2, 3, and 4. And you can see that your working loops are between the 2 loops of the waste yarn, in between each stitch. Okay, so keep working until you get to the end and I'll meet you there. All right, so 43, 44. All right, so I'm at the end. I'm gonna pull up on that stitch marker to help me get under it. That's 45. And make sure that tail is out of the way. Pull up on that one to get under it. Don't pull up too hard, just so you can get under it. That's 46. Yarn over with your tail, pull that through that last loop, snug that down with your thumb, and you have now closed your second end. How beautiful. All right, so now that we have this done, and I told you I was going to show you how to use the latch hook tool to close this off, I completely forgot because although I have it, I don't use it. I prefer to use the crochet hook. So my sincere apologies, I forgot to show you that. But if you have a latch hook tool, you probably know how to use it, and you would just use it to close your sides or your end instead of the crochet hook, picking that up with the hook of your latch and bringing it through. But again, if you own a latch tool, you know how to use it, I'm sure. So you would just close your end using that. Sorry about that, friends. All right, folks, we have completed both ends. Look at them, they're beautiful. And they're even, the lengths are even. If you use just a very light tension, like I told you, when you're pulling them through, don't pull tight. Just try to be uniform all the way down. Then your lengths are gonna be the same. If you're picking up a loop and you're pulling tight or you're pulling up too hard, and then the next one, you're not using the same amount of tension, you're gonna have your ends different lengths. You're gonna have tight stitches and loose stitches, and seriously, you need to pay attention to detail even on this part of the project when you're closing your end. And then you will get beautiful, beautiful, even stitches on both ends. You'll have a nice stretch. It's not going to be too tight, and you're going to have beautiful results. So there we go. I'm not going to show you how to remove this waste yarn because I posted a tutorial the same time as this one showing you how to do that. So I'm going to set that aside. We are going to grab our tubes. Now I'm going to show you how to do the mattress stitch or the invisible join and the braided join using 22 needle tubes, just because I can get them nicely in the camera, and they're so cute. Okay, now I am going to give you a little extra tip here. Sometimes people will say, actually many times I've seen it, when people are making, some of you are making blankets and you say, I have done the exact same amount of rows on every tube, but they're different lengths. Now, you can see this one looks a little bit shorter. They're different lengths. So then they begin to try to cut off ends and put a lifeline in there and make it shorter, whatever. Don't do that. If you know that you have the exact same amount of rows in your tubes, then perhaps when you're lining them up like this, one might look a little bit shorter because you didn't stretch it the same amount. Or maybe a couple of rows, your tension was a little bit tighter. Take your piece and just make sure you've stretched it the same amount as you stretched your other ones, and it's the same length. Now this one still looks just a tiny bit shorter, and I know that it is 30 rows. Like the other one, it's actually, well, maybe it is. It looks a little bit shorter than the white one, but it's also because the white yarn might just be a little bit different consistency when you feel it, little different texture, so it just works up a little bit different. But here's the thing. Do not be going and putting a lifeline in there and cutting it off so it's the same length. Because when you join it, you are going to bring these back into line. If you have the exact same number of rows in each piece, once you start joining it, it's going to pull it all together and it's going to be perfect, and you will see. If it's got different row lengths, and that's a whole different story, row counts. If you have a machine where your counter is not working, mostly the centros, then I'd advise you to get a counter. Seriously, you need a counter, friends. It just will make your life so much easier. You can mark your rows every 15, 20 rows, whatever you like with a marker as you knit, but I would advise you to get a counter. It's worth the money. I'll link it down in the description box below, the one that I use, and I just love them. I have it on my centros. But anyways, we're going to take two of our pieces. I'm going to put one of these aside. I'm going to take these two pieces. Here's another tip. When you're joining your tubes, do not have two tails together like this and two like this. Flip it so that you have one, because you're going to use this tail. Once you start joining this, you're going to have the tail from your join, and you can use this to tie it to and make your ends nice and even at the top, and you've got it at the bottom there too. If you have this like this, then you've got an extra tail there, extra tail here, and then when you get to this one, you don't have a tail to join. When I put this one on, if that's the case, when I put this one on, then if I have got one tail left here, then that will join. But if I've got it like this, I've got no tail to join to, because I've just doubled up on that side. So be careful to watch for that. Always turn it so you have just one extra tail, and this one's left for the next panel that you do on this side of it. And then this one comes in, and this is the tail that you use here. Does that make sense? I hope so. I think I heard you all yell yes. Okay, so there we go. We're going to take two of our pieces, and we're going to start with the invisible join or the mattress stitch that we're going to do with these two. Grab yourself a needle. My preference is these metal wool needles. They have the loop in them, and these are the ones that I use most often when I'm knitting, even to take my projects off the machine and stuff. And we're going to use it for this. Grab yourself yarn. Doesn't matter which color, you can choose each color, and you want to grab a length that is 2 times, or 1.5 at least, to 2 times the length of your piece. I have my yarn on my needle, and we're going to take our piece. Now, choose which side is the nicest to be the front of your work. In the invisible join, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. But when you're doing the braided join, you need to know which is your front and which is your back. And we're going to get to the braided join, but I always make it my practice anyway so that I don't forget when I do come to do a braided join. You want to choose which is your front. All right, so I'm going to take stitch markers that look like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place them on the front of my work and at the top of my work, where I'm going to start. What end are you starting your seaming on? This is the end I'm going to start my seaming on. So I'm going to pop that on there, and this one on here. This becomes my front, and that becomes the end I always start. Especially when you get to the braided join, you always want to start on the same end so that your V's are all in the same direction for every panel. So just make it a habit. when you're doing whatever kind of a join, and you won't forget, okay? So now you're going to take those two pieces and you're going to put the wrong sides together. Just like that. See how this blue one looks shorter? It's because of the yarn. They're both medium 4-weight yarn, but it's because of the yarn. But you're going to see how they come together, all right? If you're working it the right way. So we're going to take those two. We're going to put the wrong sides together. You're going to find the row on the side where the wide part of the stitch, wide part of that natural looking V, here's my V, is on the right. Here's my V, there's the point, that's on the right, and the wide part of the stitch is on the left. All right, so that's the direction that your stitch is going on both ends. So the wide part of the stitch is on the left, the narrow part, the point, is on the right. You're going to find both natural sides that have that. If this side is like that, where the point of the V on one of them, here's the point of the V, is going to the left, give it a little half a row turn. You want them to be the same. You're going to line that up. You're going to get those tails out of your way. And you're going to go into the first stitch. So here's the first stitch that I can see. I'm going to go into the center of that stitch. I'm going to pick up this bar that's between that stitch and the next, and then go underneath and pick up the next one. I have 2 bars on my needle. I'm going to pull through. Keep that out of the way. I'm going to go over to the other side, and I'm going to go into that first stitch. Right there, I'm going to pick up the bar and pick up the bar. We're going to pull through. Don't pull this too tight yet. You can pull it all tight after you... Actually, do you see what I... Wait, maybe that is the first stitch. Sometimes it's tricky to see which is the first stitch. I think... Nope, that was right. I'm going to keep this on. I'm not going to edit this because sometimes it looks tricky, and if it's not the first one, you want to take it out and start over. But even for me, sometimes it's hard to see. So this was the first one that I was in. You're going to go in there. Now, if the first one is too tight and you cannot find it, and you go into the second one, then you have to start on the second one on the other side, and then you use this tail to close off the end once you're finished. All right, so whatever stitch you go into, whether it be the first or the second to start on this side, you have to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to pick up one, especially when you have color changes in your work, because you want your lines to match up. All right, so then I've picked up 2 on each side. I'm coming back to this white one, and you'll see here's where your strand is coming out. You're going to go into that same stitch where it's coming out, and you're going to pick up 1 and 2. Pull through. Don't pull it too tight. Again, you don't need to for the invisible join until you've done a few. Here's where I'm coming out. Always look for where you're coming out, and then you'll be able to stay on the same row. Another problem people have is it twists and they can't stay on the same row, and I honestly don't understand that. Because if you go in where you came out, you're automatically on the same row. So I'm going to pick up 1 and 2. And you know what? Maybe just smooth out 6 to 10 stitches. See, my row is nice and smooth, so it makes it easier. And pinch small sections at a time, just so it helps you stay. Here is where I'm coming out. So I'm going to go back into that stitch. Pick up 1, 2. The sun keeps going behind a cloud, so if it's getting a little darker in here, hopefully my camera is adjusting for you, but it's going dark and light and dark and light. Here's where it's coming out. I'm going to go back in, pick up 1, 2, and you're alternating from one panel to the next, or one tube to the next. Here's where I'm coming out. I'm going to go back into there, and I'm going to pick up 1, 2. It's so very, very easy. Here's where I'm coming out. I'm going to pick 1, 2. Pull through. I'm going to do about 3 or 4 more, and then we'll pull it tight. Here's where I'm coming out. I'm going to pick up 2. Here's where I'm coming out. I'm going to pick up 2. Let's do 2 more. Here's where I'm coming out. I'm going to pick up 2. Here's where I'm coming out. I'm going to pick up 2. Now that's what it's looking like so far, a zigzag back and forth. If you take your two tails, the two ends of that yarn that you're using to sew, and you pull them away from each other, it pulls that all together and makes a beautiful, beautiful seam. All right, and then you're going to use this tail and this one to fix the end, which we will do when I'm done this. But now you're going to put the wrong sides together again, and you're going to continue. Once you pull it, it's sometimes a little hard to find that last stitch, but you can just wiggle it a little bit. And you see it's coming out of this one here. So you're going to pick up 2 and 2. And you're going to go over to the other side. You're going to just smooth these out so you have a nice flat row there. Here's where it came out. I'm going to pick up 2. I'm going to pick up 2 and 2. I'm going to work this all the way down to the bottom. And stick your finger in there if you like to hold those two rows nice and even. That will help you too. And 2. So this is called the mattress stitch or the invisible join. And you'll see that you won't be able to see this white or this blue yarn on your white piece because it's invisible. And there we go. You should have the same amount of stitches if you did the same amount of rows. There we go. I'm going to pick up that one and that one. That's 2. And there and there. That takes me to the top. It worked out perfectly because I had the same amount. So now when I pull this, you can either pull both ends if it's a short enough piece. If you got a long tube that you're likely working on, then pinch where you last left off and pull that tail. And there you go. Your tubes are the same length and it worked out perfectly. Now, be careful when you are pulling this that you don't pull and get gathering in there, because that just doesn't look nice, does it? If that happens, then take this and just pull the ends away from each other, and that will work itself out just like that. From there, I'm going to just flip a smaller needle onto here. This is the one that I have handy, so I'm going to take that. These come in 3 different sizes, and I usually use the smallest one for what I'm going to do now, but we'll use this one here. I'm going to take my end, and you see this last loop right there. Try to get into that loop. Bring it across and through. Then I do the same thing on this side, the very closest one to the edge. Bring that through, just like that. Then I'm going to tie these 2 off. In a knot. I will work this blue one into that side just by going underneath and weaving back and forth those bars. However you like to do your finishing work, but that's how I do mine. And back and forth just under the bars. Oops, not with this needle. It's too flexible, and so it doesn't work well for this finishing work, but we're going to pursue this until we're done. And then we're going to just go back. I don't do it too far because I don't want to compromise the look of my edge there. And there we go. Because I weaved back and forth on these little loops here, it kind of looks the same and you don't even notice that you've done that. Then you're going to take this and you're going to pop it in between the 2 layers. Cut it off. And you're going to do the same thing to your white one. I like to finish my tails as I go along. I don't like to do a pile of tubes and then go back and do a pile of ends. I like to do it as I go along, but you can choose how you like. So underneath there, then pick up underneath that one and come across. And you really don't have to go that far. That's actually far enough. Come back. and into there. And then I'm going to pop that down in between the two layers and cut it off. I'm going to do the same with this side. I'm going to sew it up, knot it off, hide my ends. Go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back when you're done. All right, I have both of my ends done, and you see how beautiful that join is. It just looks very, very pretty. Because we grabbed our stitches where both the where the wide part of the stitch was going the same direction. When you do your join, then it automatically makes another row. If you would have had one with the point going up and one with the wide part, then you would have had a funny row in here. This just looks like the next row. So here's a row, here's a row, here's a row, here's a row. It just naturally falls in line and follows the sequencing of how the rows look. All right, this is the back. Looks beautiful too. All right, now this one looked a little bit shorter, but now it's perfect. This is the front of our work, and this is the end that we started sewing on. So now, if you were to put a second panel on, tube on, you would add it there. You would put your wrong sides together. You would find your wide part of the stitch. See, this one naturally falls with the point of the V going to the left. So I'm going to give that just a half a stitch turn, line those up beautifully. And you would start from this end where your marker is and go down. Again, it's not so important when you're doing the invisible join, but with the braided join, it's very important. So it's best to just form your habits and keep them consistent. And then I would put this next panel on and work my way down and keep going for as many. I keep calling them panels, but well, in a sense they are panels, but they're tubes. So then you just keep going for each piece that you have until you have your blanket done or your piece done, whatever you're working on. All right, so that is the invisible join. Let's now do the braided join. So invisible or mattress stitch, now braided join. To do the braided join, so once you have one done, you can take this off and transfer it over to this one. All right, because we know that we're working in this direction. And so this is the top. This is the right side. Because our stitch marker is on the right side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put our wrong sides together. We're going to find our stitching so that it's in the same patterning where the wide part of the stitch goes to the left. That's just my practice. You can try it with the point going. I don't think it's as easy, to be honest with you, but you can try it. And we're going to take our crochet hook. I use a 5mm crochet hook. A 4.5 or a 4 would work as well. This one is where it's a little bit difficult to get into that first stitch. So here's where my visible first stitch is right here. So you might have to take a little bit of your needle there to help pull it up so that you can get into that first one. You're gonna put that loop onto your crochet hook. You're gonna go over to the other side and you're gonna go into that same one. So let me just take this out again. When you're doing this join, sometimes this knot will fool you. That looks like it could be a stitch, but it's not. This is the stitch. That's the knot. So if you can't get into that first one, you start in the second one and then you use this tail to sew that one together. You try very hard to get into the first one though, but what you do on one side, you have to do on the other. So if I went into the second one here, I have to go into the second one on the other side if I want it to line up. All right, so here's the first one right here. Sometimes it helps to take your hook, get it in there, and get underneath. It's only hard to start, and it's not actually hard, it just takes a little bit more patience. There, just like that. So once you have that center piece on your hook, which was hard because I'm not on the right thing. And again, I'm not editing that because it happens to all of us. And there is nobody on YouTube who does videos who doesn't have to edit and who take things, who will make a mistake like that and have to start over. I don't like to edit it always out of the video because you need to see that it happens to all of us. It's very easy to make a mistake. So when you notice it, you go back in, and I'm going to go here because I was on the wrong row. and I'm going to pick up that first bar, and I'm going to take that bar, I'm going to pull it through the one that was on my hook. So now I have the white one on my hook. I'm going to go down. So smooth out these rows so they're easier to hold. Here is the stitch that I am coming up, that I've worked, okay? You can see it's pulling right there. It's coming out of this one. So I always count that as 1 because we're gonna leave that bar and go into the next one and pick up the second bar. So I go 1, 2, pick up the second one and work it through. You'll be able to see this a little bit clearer when I get a little farther down. Here is the stitch that we essentially came out of. I count that as 1. We're going to miss this bar and go into the next one and take that next bar. So 1, 2, and work that into your stitch. And it can be a little bit tight at first, but just maneuver it. Don't put too much stress and tension on it because you want to have a nice stitch. But I'm already down even the 1 stitch. You can see this a little bit better. Here's the one that we're working, that we worked. So I count 1 because I'm going to miss this one, and 2, pick up the second one. So we're missing a bar, picking up a bar and working it. Here's where I came out, this one here, 1, 2, pick up that next bar and work it. 1, 2, work it. 1, 2, pick up that one and pass it through. 1, 2, 1, 2. So we're missing a bar and picking a bar. 1, 2. Oh, let me show you one more time. I count this as 1. I'm missing it and I'm picking up 2. And you're going to do that all the way down. And eventually you don't have to count. You just know that you're missing the one that you came out of and going into the next one. But to get a visual first by counting will help you when you're learning. And you just turn that a little bit so it's all nice and even. See how flat that is now? Because I turned it and I'm just working a small section at a time. And I'm going to pick up and work it, pick up and work it all the way down. And again, when you've done the same amount of rows and you know you have, it will work out. When you're doing this, it'll pull it all in line together and it will be beautiful. Just make sure that you start in the same stitch on each piece. And let's just turn that a little bit. Now I have 1 left because that's a knot. If you have 1 left, you're going to go into it and you're going to pick it up. And again, it can be a little bit difficult. There we go. See, I almost turned that to the wrong side. It can be a little bit difficult to get into that very last stitch and to find that bar. But we're not scared of difficult, are we? If you have to, you can go like this and give that bar a little help with your needle and pull it up. Sometimes they want to hide on you, and there you go. And then you can get into it and you can finish off. Now I have this tail on this side. I'm going to take that tail, I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to bring it through that last loop. Hence the reason why you need a tail on one end. And there we go. That was our top. We've got our braided join. I'm going to now take my tail with my smaller metal needle. I'm going to pick up this very last stitch here. Come through. Gently put that together. Come over here, do the same thing. This tail's a little short, so it's falling off. There we go. And I'm going to do the same with this side over here. And then I'm going to hide my tails just like I did with my invisible join. Now, don't shut me off yet because I'm going to explain to you, if you have another panel, how you're going to do it. how you're going to add it, just so that you know, to make it consistent. So there we go. That is the front, and you'll see that our V stitches look like they're going down. Or if you have it this way, they're going up. But you want, every time you add a panel or a tube, you want to make sure that your V stitches are going in the same direction, which is why you need your stitch markers to show you that this is the front, this is the end that you start working on. Because if you turn this around, it looks much different. That's the back. All right, so you don't want to be working on the wrong side and then having your braid, having this beautiful part here on the other side of your work. So stitch markers for the win. All right, so now we're working this way. I can take this one off. And if I had another piece to add here, I'm going to put my right sides together, and I'm going to work from the top of my edge where my stitch marker is showing me, and I'll put this, let's pretend this is another piece. I'll put my stitch marker in there, and I'll do the exact same thing all the way down, going from the top where my stitch marker is down, and that will keep my braided join going in the same direction on every tube. There you go, friends. Hide your ends, and it's beautiful. There you go, friends. You have learned how to do the braided join or slip stitch join for the end of your work to make it a flat edge. Now you can add your crochet edge to this if you want, or you can add a fringe. You can just do a lot of things with it, or just leave it the way it is, and it will be absolutely beautiful that way. Add pom-poms to the end, whatever you want to do. And you have learned how to do the invisible join or the mattress stitch and the braided join. I hope that you have learned lots in this tutorial if you're new, and maybe if you're not new, that maybe you have gained some tips that you didn't know before. I don't know, whatever. Thanks again for joining me. I hope this tutorial was beneficial to you. Again, I just want to take this time to tell you guys how much I love and appreciate you. Thank you for being a part of my community. It means more to me than you'll ever know. And it's been a pleasure spending time with you. Take care. Have a very blessed day, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.